All right, you guys, here in front of me is the 2023 Honda Civic SI. Of course, it's a staple in the Civic lineup, and it has been for, God, a lot longer than I've been alive, 40 plus years. You guys know it's like the way to add a little bit of spice to your Civic, but without going Type R. This car is happy to daily drive with you. I mean, the Type R does that as well. It's more than happy to oblige, but that's what this was made for. So let's see how it stacks up, of course, to the Acura Integra, and if it's worth the extra money. You can kind of think of Type R and SI like GT3 RS to GT3. Okay, maybe that's a little bit of a stretch. Let's go for a drive. Okay, so not only is there a shift light in the Civic Si, now we know there's a shift sound as well. Standard here, of course, we get a helical LSD up front, so, well, and a 6-speed manual, so performance oriented, yes. But then we pop the hood, and of course, there's Honda's turbocharged 1.5 liter engine. They are incredibly proud it's turbocharged. It's all over their website. They remind you multiple times. And here I am thinking, well, hey, it's turbocharged because it has to be turbocharged. A 1.5 liter cannot get away with being naturally aspirated. But all of that aside, it makes 200 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque. And that torque is very low down because the turbo is incredibly small. So, first couple gears here, and even third and fourth gear, if you're at lower RPMs and you put your foot down, it's got a little bit of meat to it, especially if you know beforehand that you're dealing with a 1.5. It's got a little bit more than I would expect. Of course, Honda shifter is great. Great feeling shifter, love the shift knob. It feels great. It's easy to jump in, heel toe, and just shift like you actually want to be driving this thing, which is of course what this car is for. It does ride stiff, actually. A couple things I would say though are, okay, yeah, the pedals are great position. Coming off the line, and this isn't really apparent, it doesn't really matter as much once you're going, but the clutch feel isn't all that great. I come to expect this from Honda. I've driven enough Hondas now that it's something I just expect, and I don't really notice it, especially for a daily driver. I feel like in the long run that probably will serve you more than it would hurt you. By the way, I do have auto rev matching off, which I will get to in a second here. Another thing I will say, you can watch me right here, rev hang. That's the speed. What I just did, 2 to 3, that's the speed the Civic Si wants me to shift at. That's the speed it's comfortable. That's the speed it kind of syncs up with me as a driver. That's disappointing, and I did mention it in the Integra video. It's here, and the revs are hanging there, 4,000 RPM. I can let the clutch out. So what happens as a byproduct of this, when you are kind of driving a little bit more spirited and you're pushing the car and taking advantage of the 235 wide tires all the way around, what you feel is the car's not fully, like I said, in sync with you. It feels like you're fighting the car a little bit, and that's not what I want. I want the car to wrap around me and to work with me. I want it to play ball. If I had a dog and I chucked the ball and it brought it back to me once, I would sell that dog. I would give that dog up for adoption. If it did it 2 or 3 times, hey, maybe I'd forgive it and we'd live a happy life together. But that's just not the case with the SI. It's not such a big deal where it takes away the fun of driving this car because the car drives amazing. And with that LSD, you get really good feedback through the corners, through corner exit. There is a little bit of a VTEC kick above 5,000 RPM. I mean, it's fast enough to have fun, that's for sure. Fast enough to get in trouble? No. That's what the Type R is for, though. And of course, the SI does weigh about 90 pounds less than the Integra. It's fun. It's a great car, especially for the money with the SI. The Integra, I was really looking for an extra bump in horsepower. Here, not so much, and maybe that's just mental because I know I'm paying $10,000 less here, but it's just a really well balanced car. So drive modes here, a little bit different than the Integra. We have normal, of course, sport, which pumps in a little bit of artificial exhaust tone, I should say engine tone, not necessarily exhaust tone, into the cabin here. And then of course it weights up the electric assisted power steering just a little bit to give you some extra feedback. It also has an individual mode. Let's see what we can customize here for individual. Of course we can customize our engine, our throttle response, steering goes into sport, and then our gauges. Actually, what does the normal gauges look like? Basically the same. That doesn't change anything, Honda, come on. What this doesn't have is a comfort setting. Why doesn't this have a comfort setting? Well, this does not get the adaptive dampers that the Acura Integra gets. That's a huge change. We'll get to pricing in a second here. But one of the first things I noticed when I got in this car is how stiff it is. It's not race car stiff. It's not FK8 Civic Type R stiffness. And I don't say FL5 because I have not driven one yet. And how dare I talk about a car I have not driven yet, so I won't. But just know that the suspension is definitely on the sportier side. I like it, of course, versus the standard Civic. This does have stiffer spring rates. Wow, really picks up above 4,500 RPM. Now I hear some engine tone. As well, of course, the dampers are stiffer here along with the thicker anti-roll bars. Creates a sporty driving experience. Now, what it's not is a dual personality vehicle. This is a one purpose car. It could be your only car. Should it be your only car? Well, let's talk about the Integra first, and that'll give us some context, and then we can come back here and kind of make a final decision. One thing I did notice here, and I really wish Honda would fix this, in order to change the automatic rev matching, which is a great feature, I like changing this quite often. If I'm in the city, I'll probably, please don't hate me for this too much, I'll probably leave the auto rev matching on. It just makes it easier to drive in stop and go traffic. But when I'm out here, I want it off. So I'm constantly kind of going back and forth. In order to change it though, I have to go into the menus. Fine, okay, it's a responsive system. I swipe to the right, that's 1. Vehicle settings, that's 2. Driver assist setup, that's 3. Scroll down, that's 4. Rev match system, that's 5. And then I can turn it on. That's 6 presses of the screen. That's 5 too many. That's even 4 too many. Come on, Honda, I'm giving you some leeway. There's even an empty button. There's a button that's not being used right below the traction control button. Hey, look, those go really well together. Let's put it there. That's not what Honda did. It's kind of a minor thing, but it's worthy to know. Most people will just rev match themselves because it's a manual in 2023. So the suspension is not the only thing that the SI doesn't have that the Integra does have. The interior is great here. The first thing you'll notice are the seats. They are different. This is a one-piece seat here. There's no separate headrest. I do like these seats better. They're more catered to the sports side of things, and I think this engine, transmission, chassis pairing, that's what it's good at, so let's just go further down that avenue, right? That's why I like these seats better. I wish they had lumbar. They are cloth here, whereas in the Integra you get ultra suede and faux leather trimmed seats. And of course here, they're manual. There's 6-way manually adjustable seats versus the Integra gets 12-way power seats. We're also missing a heads-up display here. I don't really care too much about that. That's not a huge miss. And then here we get the Bose 12-speaker audio system versus the ELS 16-speaker audio system, which is a noticeable upgrade. But what are you paying for all this, and what are, if any, your other options? Okay, so you guys probably already know this, but there's a huge price difference here. $10,000 Canadian, $35,000 as tested here is the SI, $45,000 for the Integra A-Spec. Of course, like I mentioned in my Integra review, you have to spec the A-Spec Elite here in Canada, which is top spec for the Integra, to get the 6-speed manual. Of course, you're giving up a couple of things here. You're giving up the hatchback. This is a sedan, as you guys can tell, and you're not losing a small amount of cargo space. It's just not small. It is a very large amount of cargo space that you're giving up. And if you must have the faux leather seating arrangements and the power seats and 6 extra speakers, heads-up display, all the things I mentioned, if this will be your only car, I'd say go with the Integra. I'd say it's worth the extra money. Maybe if you have an SUV and this is your second kind of weekend car that can still fit most of the family and you don't need all of the extra cargo space, I would personally just have a tendency to go SI all day long. But what if there's a third option? Okay, so last week I was actually in the Civic hatchback again. It was a CVT model I was driving, so not the manual, although I have driven the manual. And of course the CVT reminded me how good the manual was. The manual, the Civic Sport Touring, is a hatchback like the Integra. Now, what do you get in the Sport Touring that you don't get here? Well, you get real leather. You don't even get that in the $45,000 Integra A-Spec Elite top spec. So if you want the hatchback, you want the leather, and your focus is more on the interior comfort and amenities, I would honestly step down to that Civic Sport Touring hatchback. And it places itself pricing-wise right smack in the middle of these two cars, $39,000 Canadian. You do lose 20 horsepower with that car. It's down to 180 horsepower. But if you jump in the SI or the Integra and you're not begging for more, I think 180 might be enough for you. But if you want to save some money, you want to be a little bit more comfortable, but you have to have 3 pedals, I think that's the way to go. So those are your 3 options. All right, you guys, thanks for watching. This has been the Civic Si. I will be driving the Integra Type S very soon, which I'm very much looking forward to. So look out for that. See you next time.